Good morning, after evening, my beautiful people. My name is All Night, and hello again. You heard me right, we're back once again because there's one more type of content that I really haven't done much of on this channel, and that is just general speculation and news coverage in the gaming scene. 2023. What else can we say about it at this point? One of the most wild years in gaming history. A year so wild that one of the best games released in the year had its entire community turn on it after it did not win Game of the Year. Reddit, do we need to have a talk? No, but in all seriousness, I think if you thought that 2023 was a dead year for games, or that, the games as a service model has truly corrupted and changed gaming forever, you could not be any more wrong. We ate fantastically in 2023. We feasted. But it's a new year, and we have what left to look forward to? I have already talked in another video about how we have a lot of superhero video games to look forward to, so link in the description for that. But no, today's topic is a little bit more nuanced because I am actually touching ground with a company that I really haven't had a lot to say about on this channel before.
Nintendo.
Yep, you heard me right. I have kept my distance from Nintendo. I have avoided touching them with a 49.5-foot pole simply based on the reasoning that I am scared of what the copyright implications look like whenever I even remotely reference Nintendo music or video games or what have you. Their stance on copyright in the content creator space is very nebulous, if that's the word for it. So needless to say, kind of avoided this topic for a while. But there is one thing on everyone's minds as of late, and that is just what the hell are Nintendo cooking with their next console? I will say this once and I will say it again, the Nintendo Switch was a fantastic console in its lifespan. What it lacked in some first-party support and also the estranged shovelware, it more than made up for being a fantastic platform for a lot of indie games to get onto. And the Nintendo Switch is home to some of the best first-party Nintendo releases for their respective franchises. Games like Mario Odyssey, games like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. First-party Nintendo fans do have a lot in terms of the Switch library, but where do we go from here? Well, if it wasn't any more obvious at this point, I of course am talking about the Switch 2, the Super Switch, just whatever the hell the name is going to be at this point. Now, the concept of the Switch 2 is not a new concept. Everyone's been waiting for the Switch Pro for like 7 years, but the Switch Pro isn't a thing and it's never going to be a thing. No, I think what we all definitely can smell at this point is that Nintendo is cooking a brand new console. And the rumor mill has divulged that the new console is going to be essentially a Switch successor with PS4 level hardware. So wait, just what the hell does that mean? Currently, as a baseline to what we are understanding is that the new console is going to be another iteration on the Nintendo Switch model, where it is a handheld console that has Joy-Con support where you can remove and reattach the controllers at your will, and it can also plug into your TV for your big screen gaming experience. And it is essentially going to have the same processing and graphical power as a PlayStation 4. Yet again, perpetuating the unfortunate circumstances since the Nintendo Wii that Nintendo have now essentially just constantly been behind on hardware in terms of the current gaming atmosphere. And I want to touch on the hardware aspect first, because I can understand one side of the argument that is frustrated that Nintendo is not embracing modern graphical technology with its latest consoles. Some people at this stage just want a Nintendo console that is just a normal-ass brick that just sits on their TV stand, and they want to play 4K 60 FPS Zelda to their heart's content. Now, I want 60 FPS Zelda, please, like for the love of God. No, what I do want to see is I want to see performance. I want to be able to play these games quickly, I want the load times to be shorter, and I want the frame rates to be faster. Playing the Switch in handheld mode is a particular experience if you're playing a slightly higher end game on it. Now, of course, if you're playing something that's slightly more pixelated or even an indie game that just does not, have crazy, insane graphical fidelity, then you're of course going to get standard performance and it's going to run pretty damn well. But I think there's a middle ground that I want the Switch 2 to strike. If we're rocking with PlayStation 4 levels of hardware, It's already been said at this point, but Ghost of Tsushima, man. I remember loading that game up for the first time on my PlayStation 4 way back in the day, and thinking that they were absolutely pulling some sort of witchcraft to trick your eye into thinking that it looks prettier than it actually is. Obviously, on PlayStation 5, it probably has less tricks up its sleeve, but on PlayStation 4, a game at the level of Ghost of Tsushima is driven by its art direction, not its polygon count. And art direction is a critical point of topic when you're talking about Nintendo games. Games like Super Mario Bros. Wonder, or Odyssey, or Galaxy, or any of the most recent Zelda games are beautiful looking because of their art direction. Games that struggle with their art direction and performance, like the latest Pokemon titles, are examples of the Switch hardware not being used to what it's good at. That's a Pokemon company problem, not a Nintendo problem to my understanding, so we're not really gonna beat that dead horse. Nah, but really all I'm trying to get at here is that I'm actually not concerned if the Switch 2 turns out to be a portable PlayStation 4, because that's a portable PlayStation 4. That is amazing to me. We have finally reached the point of graphical fidelity where we are now experiencing diminishing returns when it comes to the graphics of a game. Where a higher fidelity, motion captured, 7 billion polygon count, facial animation, motion capture models, all of this money is being spent into making games look like real life, to where we are now having a harder time making those games in the first place. But at the end of the day, I think the core of the discussion needs to be art direction and interesting looking games and performance, rather than detail and graphical fidelity. And if the Switch 2 finds that happy medium and just runs well, honestly, I don't need it to run well in handheld mode. I will understand if it slogs a little bit in handheld mode, but if it's docked into my TV, there is no excuses anymore. And I think Nintendo may hit that, and I'm excited to see what that looks like. Now, like I said, 2023 was critical for games, and especially games for each of the big three. Xbox had Starfield, one of the biggest RPG releases of the modern day. PlayStation did have Spider-Man 2, and that was its big showcase this year. It also had some God of War DLC and God of War Ragnarok by extension in the past couple years. And Nintendo, of course, did just have Tears of the Kingdom and Mario Wonder. But here's the thing. Nintendo has other things up its sleeve that have been heavily rumored for ages now. Now, getting way too deep into the rumor mill is not a really healthy thing to do when it comes to speculation, but it's nice to think about what Nintendo is thinking about. And before I move on at all, one specific social media influencer that I encourage you to actually follow, as their sources seem to be the most consistent, is Pyoro on Twitter, or X, if you really want to call it that. Pyoro is a massively consistent influencer in the scene who consistently gets things right in terms of when things are going to get announced or what types of things are going to get announced. I would highly encourage you following and putting those noties on for Pyoro. Everyone else, their track record's a little iffy. One thing that's always common, though, is that a lot of these influencers that are taking guesses as to what's to come are either using decent resources that just sometimes get things wrong, or they are speculating based on prior patterns with Nintendo. But as we know, Nintendo is not predictable in the least. But there are a couple of things that we can use as evidence to back up the claims of some of the things we're about to talk about. And just what the hell are we talking about again? Games, of course! It is no secret that the developers behind Super Mario Odyssey are not the same developers as those of the 2D Mario games, specifically the Mario Wonder team. So it stands to reason that a new 3D Mario game is very likely happening, and is very, very, very likely going to be a next-gen Switch launch title. Just what does that look like is still way up in the air. There were speculations for years that it was going to be a Mario Odyssey follow-up, a direct sequel in fact, but I really don't think that's a Nintendo move. There was also a shit ton of speculation that assumed that Nintendo were fishing towards Mario Sunshine nostalgia baiting with that one new render of Mario with like a flannel on, enjoying a summer vacation, eating watermelon. That was, man, if you were reaching any further, you could tickle the moon with that. No, but what I think that definitely means is that Nintendo are not going to be strangers to revisiting themes from prior years, especially if they found there was some amount of actual proper nostalgia interest they could grab from people. Mario Odyssey was very popular, very well received in terms of its movement mechanics and the theming and all that good stuff, so I definitely think there's something worthwhile talking about when it comes to an Odyssey follow-up. But if we even want to remotely take this summer vacation Mario render as potential inspiration, I personally would be a massive fan of a Mario Sunshine follow-up. Galaxy got a direct sequel, and you could technically consider Odyssey a direct 64 follow-up, so why not get Sunshine some love here? But again, Nintendo is not very predictable when it comes to exactly what that next 3D Mario is going to be about. But even still, a man can hope, a man can dream. Regardless, new 3D Mario. It's expected to happen. Guarantee it. Another thing that is more than likely guaranteed, of course, is going to be my baby girl. My darling, Metroid. Yeah, no, this is something I've actually never talked about on this channel, but I love Metroid. Metroid is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, first-party Nintendo franchise. If there's one thing that is consistent with this particular franchise and any other franchise this developer touches, it's that Retro Studios is going to friggin' deliver. Metroid Prime 4 was announced, oh god, how long was it again? Oh boy. It was announced back in 2017. We are going on almost a decade after this game was announced. But there's a couple of things to consider with that. One, you do have to remember that development was restarted just a couple years after the announcement, and Retro Studios kinda had to slink themselves back into production to overtake and oversee everything moving forward. So I kinda understand that. Another thing that you could speculate and think on in terms of what Metroid Prime 4 was supposed to be was that Metroid Prime 4 more than likely was actually planned for the Switch, but potentially was moved as a launch title for the new Switch. Is that truly what happened? No, I have no idea. There's no way to know that. Point still stands. Metroid Prime 4. What could it look like? Y'all know my stance about, looking at job listings on developers' websites and garnering anything of what the game will actually be. But I think based on surrounding evidence of Metro Studios' influence on the Prime franchise, as well as ancillary things involving other games in the franchise, I think we can take a couple of hints as to what it will be. My current big takeaway and my current big theory, this is kind of reaching even for me, is that the game will feature one-to-one local co-op or online co-op with Samus as the main character and Sylux as the co-op character. But I wager that Metroid Prime 4 will be a, standard Metroid game, but the first Metroid game in the series to feature co-op, where you can play as Samus and Sylux adventuring together and uncovering the map, planet, whatever. Would a co-op Metroidvania truly work? I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember if there even is a Metroidvania co-op game anywhere. Leave a comment down below. Let me know if there are co-op Metroidvania style games out there. I'm genuinely curious right now. But between the Sylux teaser scenes in Metroid Prime Federation Force and the post-credit scene of Metroid Prime 3, I think Retro Studios specifically has a plan for Sylux from Metroid Prime Hunters, and they want to bring him to Metroid Prime 4. If nothing else, he's definitely going to be a main antagonist or rival to Samus, so that is absolutely going to influence the game. I think beyond everything else and just how the Metroid Prime series has evolved from 1 through 3, I definitely think Retro Studios is going to try and balance the action shooter vibes from 3 with melding more the proper Metroid explorative mechanics from the first game. I think that, a brand new, fresh iteration on this franchise is the perfect room to, not reinvent the wheel, but go back to your roots just a little bit, and again, find that perfect balance between those two extremes. I think Metroid Prime 4 is the prime candidate to do that. Honestly, if the game is half as good as Metroid Dread, I'll dump $120 on that game. Please! Also, on God Nintendo, if you do not announce this console and update us on Metroid Prime 4 in the same breath, you better watch it. Another title that has some speculativeness around it is concerning Kid Icarus Uprising. Now here's the thing. I love Masahiro Sakurai. Masahiro Sakurai has to be one of, if not my favorite game developer of all time. I think the way that he makes games and the way that he thinks about making games makes so much sense and is so player first at the end of the day that no matter what game he touches just turns to gold. Kid Icarus Uprising is no stranger to that. That was a fantastic 3DS game that was held back, honestly, by the fact that it was a 3DS game. In my mind, if Kid Icarus Uprising was released on a console with proper dual-stick controller support, it would be one of Nintendo's flagship franchises at this point. But I think the fact that we were in this weird middle child stage, going from the Wii U with the Wii U and 3DS as the portable and mainline console symbiotic relationship nonsense, moving into the Switch era where now the portable console and the main console are the same thing, we now have a prime way of reintroducing a newly reintroduced franchise back to the modern scene. Now, this would not be a small feat. I don't think Nintendo would just port the graphics directly to a Switch 2, up-res it, maybe make it make it HD or whatever, and just call it a day. I genuinely think they would remake this game from the ground up, almost even giving it like Metroid Prime Remastered treatment. Now, the main reason why I bring up Kid Icarus Uprising is because of two major pieces of evidence that we know of. Number one, there is a mystery game being developed by Bandai Namco to develop a 3D action game for Nintendo hardware. We have no idea what this game is. This is still an unannounced title that we know of because of job listings. And again, don't listen to job listings, but this makes the most sense right now because again, we don't know what that first-party Nintendo game is yet. And the other piece of evidence that we have comes directly from Masahiro Sakurai himself. Now, never take this man's word for gospel. He can say one thing on social media, he can say one thing on his YouTube channel, he could say something in a Smash Direct. It's not always going to be one-to-one exactly what you think. But if there is one thing that he has been consistent with, it is dropping some minor breadcrumbs here and there on what could be worked on or what may be considered being worked on at some point. And the one big clue that he gave us was that in one of his most recent YouTube videos on Sakurai Makes Games, go check out his channel, link in the description, one of the biggest things that he dropped was talking about Kid Icarus Uprising and talking about the potential of that game being remade, and he's actively wondered what that would look like. If there's one thing I know about Sakurai, it's that I genuinely don't think he would let another developer touch the game without some amount of advisory from him. Now, he may very well retire very soon. He said that he has been retiring like 3 different times and did not retire. But the man's getting up there in age and he can't make Smash Brothers forever, so maybe an advisory role on a 3D action game, Kid Icarus Uprising, porting it to Switch, not just porting it, remaking that son of a gun. I think it just makes perfect sense. On the topic of Smash, I have no clue what the future of Smash Brothers is going to look like. In fact, I'm probably going to make an entirely separate video talking about Smash and where Smash has gone and where Smash is going, because that is a ripe discussion all on its own. But if I were to, of course, speculate on what types of games should come to the Switch 2, every Nintendo console since the 64 has had their Smash Brothers title. And if Nintendo announces new hardware, a new Smash Brothers is not far behind. That and probably, the 4th port of Mario Kart 8 at this point. I still haven't gotten Mario Kart 8 on Switch. I need to get that. My credit card says another day. But to keep it brief on what I think Smash Brothers on the next Switch could look like, I see us going down one of 2 roads. Either A, Nintendo ports Smash Ultimate along with all Fighters Passes directly to the Switch 2, and includes maybe one bonus fighter or maybe an Echo Fighter Pass or something to that effect. Or subsequently, if it's going to be a brand new game built from the ground up, we might finally see a Smash Brothers reboot. And again, I really want to get into this on another video because, man, there'd be so much to do. But you could do so much with a new Smash game to the point where you could have the roster size be only as big as Melee, but all of the major characters could be tweaked and rebooted in such a way that it would be just, an entire new cast of characters. Redo Mario's moveset to feel more like Odyssey. Redo Link's to feel more like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Please, for the love of God, update Samus. Either give her a Metroid Prime treatment or give her Metroid Dread's moveset. That would be dope as hell. But oh my god, if I could go off on talking about where Smash could potentially go, I'd be here until the Switch 3 was announced. Another day, another video. And the final franchise to speculate about when it comes to the new Switch would be the Donkey Kong series. There were, of course, rumors floating around that the Mario Odyssey team was actually working on a new 3D Donkey Kong platformer. Which, if we even got remotely close to Donkey Kong 64, but like, just made it less hell to play through, that would be amazing. Between the new Donkey Kong area coming to Super Mario World theme parks, and the supposed standalone Donkey Kong film based on the Mario animated film franchise, we got a lot of limelight on our favorite big monkey. I personally loved the hell out of Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, and I loved that they ported that to Switch. My wife and I have gotten plenty of mileage out of playing that front to back, but it's been a while since we've seen something new from Donkey Kong. We know for a fact that Retro are preoccupied working on Metroid, so Donkey Kong's kind of left in this weird nebulous space without a new game. So if the Mario Odyssey team is in fact not working on a new 3D Mario, but is instead working on a new 3D Donkey Kong, and that is our new flagship 3D platformer to introduce your new console, that'd be a bit wild. That is pie in the sky speculation for me at this point, but God, a guy can dream. Again, highly speculative and only based on rumors at this point. Maybe the next Mario game is actually a Mario and Donkey Kong based co-op 3D platformer. Some kind of, collaboration between the two. I don't know. Again, at this point, I feel like I could go off and on and on and on forever about what things Nintendo could be working on. But I think what is very obvious at this point is that Nintendo is lined up to launch this new hardware very soon. Nintendo is fascinating in that way, where you really have no idea what they will do next. There's one thing for sure, and we're damn sure not getting an F-Zero this next generation. I guess go play F-Zero 99 in the meantime. But those were my unscripted ramblings on what Nintendo is possibly cooking when it comes to the new Switch. If you enjoyed me talking about what could be instead of what should be, consider liking the video and let the algorithm know that I am in fact worthy of your attention. Thank you so much. And if you liked what I had to say today and are interested in seeing more of this type of content, then please consider subscribing. I promise you won't regret it. But as always, I've been your host all night, and do not forget to stay loved, keep loving, and have a wonderful night.